1993 was the year when Israel and Palestine were very close to drafting a peaceful solution. But what happened after that? The situation worsened to the extent that there is a war between them. If you want to understand today's crisis properly, we need to know the history first. In today's episode, let's get to know the detailed history between the two countries. How did the country Israel came to be? And how did the conflict between Israel and Palestine begin again? In the 19th century, Palestine was the part of Ottoman Empire where three nations, Muslims, Jews, and Christians used to live. Amidst that Zionist moment was founded at Europe, which aimed to unite Jews of the world under the creation of a Jewish state. In order to achieve its goal, Holy Land of Palestine was chosen. This place for the Jews was believed to be the Holy Land or the Promised Land, and for them, it was the land of Canaan, where Jews' scriptures were revealed to the Jewish nation. Scores of Jews from around the world started migrating to Palestine after first wave of European Jews who came and settled here. At the end of World War II, Ottoman Empire collapsed. With it, Palestine came under British occupation. It was 1917 when British announced its support for the creation of Jewish state. With it, Jews' migration and settlement in Palestine boomed consequently. Conflicts between Jews and pre-residing Muslims soar and situation is escalated towards a war. In this tense situation, British stepped back and United Nations took control of Palestine. United Nations approved the partition of land into two parts, Jews Israel and Muslim Palestine. Jerusalem, which was sacred to Muslims, Jews and Christians, was declared independent zone under United Nations control. Jews accepted the partition plan by United Nations, and as a result on May 14, 1948, Jewish State of Israel was born, but the neighboring Arab countries refused to accept Israel. That resulted into Arab-Israeli War in 1948 and Six-Day War in 1967, and by the end of two wars, Palestine is now fully occupied by Israel. Palestinians want their own country. For this reason, in 1967, Palestine Liberation Organization (PLO) was founded. Their main goal is to liberate Palestine from Israel by any means. Fighting goes on for years. The PLO initially accepts dividing the land between Palestine and Israel. But conflict does not end there. More settlers make their way into Israel-occupied Palestinian territories. As a result, in 1987, Hamas Group is born, a political movement determined to fight against Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. After this, Israel and PLO signed peace agreement. As a result, in 1994, the Palestinian government is established for the first time. It is named the Palestinian National Authority. But at this point of time, Israelis had already established permanent settlements in many West Bank areas. So, it was decided to divide the West Bank area into three parts: Area A, Area B and Area C. Area will be under the control of Palestinian government. In Area B, both the government will exercise control, that is Israel and PLO. And Area C will be under the control of Israeli government. But this peace talks proved unsuccessful. Due to this, Israel started building walls and settling checkpoints to control Palestinian movements. It's 2005, Israel withdraws from Gaza and continues settlement in West Bank. Hamas gained power in Gaza and splits from Palestinian Authority. The West Bank and Gaza are now under separate leadership. As we have discussed in this video earlier, conflict between Israel and Palestine is not the same today. The conflict between the fingers has been going on for hundreds of years. However, the reason for the current ongoing clashes started from an area called Sheikh Jarrah. If you look at the map, you can see the West Bank and Gaza in pink color. Most Palestinians live there. Palestinians are Muslims and most of the Jews live in Israel. Sheikh Jarrah is a neighborhood in East Jerusalem where many Palestinian families were ordered to leave their homes. On 7th May, Palestinian people were protesting against these evictions. These protests turned violent. Stones were thrown, the Israeli police tried to control the situation. The police and the protesters crashed, and people were injured on both the sides. Amidst, the Israeli authorities had given the permission for the Jerusalem Day March, traditionally taken out by Zionists through the Arab streets of Old City. On 10th May, Israeli armed forces stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque with rubber bullets, stun grenades and tear gas to evict Palestinians from there. Israeli armed forces claimed that they had information that Palestinians had collected stones to throw at the people of passing rallies carrying the "Death to Arabs" slogan. After this, Hamas issued an ultimatum to the Israeli troops to stand down from Al-Aqsa. Even though the Palestinians living in the West Bank hardly have anything to do with Hamas. By evening, the Hamas group launched rockets on Israel from Gaza. And when these rockets fell on Israel, Israel retaliated with airstrikes on Gaza. Israel carried out more than 130 airstrikes on Gaza. In these airstrikes, more than 40 Palestinians died, which includes 9 children. Israel came out with the slightest loss. This is all because of the Israeli defense system, the Iron Dome. What is Iron Dome? The Iron Dome is a ground-to-air short-range air defense system that neutralizes rockets and missiles. How does Iron Dome work? Iron Dome has 3 main systems that provide shield over the deployed area. The Iron Dome system uses a radar that can detect a missile being fired towards Israel. The system analyzes the threat posed by the missiles fired by the enemy. If the missile is targeting a populated area, the system fires a missile of its own attempting to neutralize the threat. This creates explosions in the sky, a relatively common sight across Israel. Israel has strategically placed the systems across the country so that it can tackle as many missiles as possible. Israeli officials claims it has taken down over 2,000 missiles since it was first brought in 10 years ago. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to the situation and vowed to destroy the Hamas group.